Hi, my name is Eugene Lee, and I'm reading Chronicle number 8. I'm a rag doll. I'm laying here, unable to move below my neck. I'm told I'm not paralyzed, but yet I cannot move much. I can move my right arm fully, and my left partially. Neither of my legs will move. Everything is in a fog. I have a breathing tube in my mouth and a feeding tube inserted into my left nostril. My beautiful wife comes close to my face and speaks to me in slow, structured sentences, much like a kindergarten teacher talking to a 5-year-old on his first day of school. She shines and is full of heavenly praise for the Lord. Strangely, it feels like I'm in a space station. I don't feel at all like I'm laying in a hospital bed, but more like I'm strapped, standing up to a wall. Nurses occasionally come in and remove bags of fluid from below me. I have no idea that it's my fluid and that I have multiple tubes connected to my lower orifices. Yes, my body is in cruise control thanks to modern science. I have a large bandage on my stomach. It covers nearly the entire area. Every once in a while, maybe like early in the morning and then again late at night, a wound nurse comes in and changes the large bandage. And if I'm awake and I move my head to the right angle, I can catch a glimpse of the large, raw, open area on my stomach. It's heartbreaking to see. Initially, I thought that this was an injury from my accident. After inquiring, I found out that it was actually an incision that was made so that they could look inside of me for possible internal bleeding. I was infuriated upon learning this. They made a cut from right below my chest down to my navel and then around my navel. It resembled an upside-down question mark. I could not comprehend why they did this. With all of the machinery and technology that exists these days, why the hell would they destroy my skin in such an inhumane way? It was painful to look at. I have 3 children. I'm well aware of what a sonogram is. Why couldn't they have used a sonogram to see if I had internal bleeding? Why did they have to cut me open? Wasn't my wounds enough? I was pissed. I'd remove the bandage and stare at the grotesque scar whenever I got a chance, and I wondered, why? Throughout my recovery, I'd show it to people, trying to get them to agree with me that it was a messed up thing that they did. But this scar was really the least of my worries. My lower left leg had been destroyed in the accident. They rebuilt it, and now has a huge metal contraption attached to it with multiple metal pins going from it into my tibia bone. Every few days I discovered a new injury or a scar that didn't exist before May 11th, 2015. Yes, that day was like my 9/11, except for the fact that there was no one to blame. Yes, it was all my fault. Thinking back, I should have pulled over when my coughing fit reached a certain point. 30 years prior, I was driving my white Mercury Monarch from the north side toward town. As I drove up the ramp near Three Rivers Stadium, I had a similar coughing fit. I pulled over to the right on the ramp, which pissed off a slew of drivers. I could barely breathe. As I got out of my car, I viciously beat on my chest as I grasped for air. Eventually, I stopped coughing and things returned to normal. I got into my car and drove to wherever I was headed. I never thought about it again. It happened again periodically over the years, but never again while driving until May 11th, 2015. Yes, I could have pulled over, but I thought it would eventually stop. Well, it did, when I passed out with my vehicle in motion and my wife strapped in the passenger seat, helpless, as our truck jumped over the median and headed like a missile towards an oncoming school bus. So now that incident has left my body like that of a rag doll, barely able to move unless assisted. I was unconscious for 5 weeks, 2 of which I was in an induced coma, so that the surgeons could make the necessary repairs to my mangled body. Now, conscious and what seemed like a surreal environment, I had to struggle to ask questions. The air tube in my mouth prevented me from communicating on a normal level. For a week or 2, I was reduced to writing on a tablet, but my penmanship was slow to return to normal, and most of my attempts were unintelligible. I also eventually learned that I also had 3 broken ribs, a pelvic injury where they placed 2 5-inch metal screws into my hip, one of which is connected to my tailbone. Also, they replaced a chipped piece of bone in my left knee. They used a piece from somewhere in my leg to replace it. They screwed the new piece of bone in with 2 2-inch screws. And they were concerned about foot drop with my left foot. Yes, my injuries were mounting up. Several weeks of my being conscious had went by before I was even informed that I had back surgery. Yes, they performed a spinal fusion, which had already healed. I now have a long scar down my back where they inserted 2 long metal rods. That surgery left me with the feeling of having a curved, 1/2-inch thick plastic shell on my back. It's like I have a small child's snow sled stuck to my back. But when I reach back and feel it, it feels flat to my touch. I guess it's the foreign material inside my body that's causing these ghost feelings. With 2 metal rods in my back and 1 metal rod in my lower left knee, 2 pins in my left hip, and 2 screws in my left knee, I'm going to have major problems at the airport from now on. At one point, I vaguely remember hearing a nurse or someone remarking that they had considered amputating my left leg below the knee. Man, am I glad I'm not living in the 1800s, and so thankful that I had a surgeon who was willing to put his training and skills to the ultimate test. Yes, he gave my leg a chance to survive, and I am forever grateful to this man. I remember my older brother Rick telling me that once when he was in an accident, they were going to amputate his arm, but a Chinese surgeon stopped them and said that he could save it. He did, and my brother now has 2 healthy arms, so I guess we both lucked out having 2 surgeons who went that extra step. The news of this caused me to lower my level of positivity about the incision on my stomach. I was still a little disappointed, but I now started to understand the severity of my injuries, and I had a better appreciation for the choices that my surgeons had made. Yes, my injuries were many, and they initially left me feeling like a rag doll. But I'm learning that recovery is a very slow process, and you have to take it one day at a time, and you must have faith in the system and in God. Onward.